Okay, so in this video, I'm going to give you an example of how to create, or some thoughts that might be going through your head, or should be going through your head in order to create a reference sheet. So I'm thinking of the reference sheet that we had for Unit 1, which was statistics. Okay, so if I was creating a reference chart for this, I would think of like the big ideas. So what I sketched out just real quick was the big ideas that we had were outliers, shapes of the distribution, measures of center, and measures of variability. Okay, so I'm going to kind of set up my reference chart based off of this information. So I'm going to go ahead and, since I came up with 4 big ideas, I'm going to go ahead and divide my reference sheet into 4 quadrants. Kind of helps me space my stuff out and not get too crowded. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about that I'm going to think of is, let's try that again. Measures of center was a big topic. Okay, so I'll make that kind of the heading of this portion. So for measures of center, some big ideas that we talked about were mean and median. So I'm going to kind of break it up from there. I don't know why this is so fuzzy. Let's see if this is good. There we go. Well, there we go. Okay, much better. Okay, so mean and median. So what I remember is that we use the mean if the data is symmetric. Okay, so we're going to use the mean if the data is symmetric. We're going to use the median if the data is skewed. Okay. So if you need to, you could actually kind of combine some of these big ideas. So if the data is symmetric, what I'm thinking of is more like a bell curve. If the data is skewed, I can talk about like skewed right, and I can talk about skewed left. So I can kind of combine some of these ideas based off of what I'm talking about. Another big topic that we did was with outliers. So with outliers, what I remember is that we have a formula. So these are the extreme values. Okay, and we talked about you use the extreme values or use the outliers if they are true. Okay, so we also talked about that as a data collector, if have an unusual data piece, 1, is it true? Okay, that's what we have to look at. Is it true? So if it is true, then you have to keep it. If you're not sure, then verify it's true. Verify if it's true. If it's not true, find the error. Okay? And then if you can't find the error, then throw that data piece out. Okay? So that was one idea. So I'm probably going to end up, even though I had like this little box set up, I'm probably going to trickle into here a little bit because that's one idea of outliers. Then they had another one is to determine if data is an outlier. And we had two ideas there. And that was doing quartile 1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. And then we have quartile 3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. So maybe if you're not sure what these mean, maybe you're going to have to do another little descriptor of what those actually mean. Okay? So this kind of leads me into, IQR. Well, that was a measure of variability. So I'm going to put that over here in this box. So the measures of variability talked about what is the spread of the data. Okay? And so when we used the mean as the center, then we have to use the standard deviation, or the MAD, as variability. And I probably should have added up here, kind of like what I did up here, is that the mean and the median were the main measures of center that we talked about. Whereas here, I kind of combined two ideas that if we use the mean as the center, then the standard deviation, or the MAD, is used as variability. If we use the median as the center, then we need to use the IQR as variability, as the measure of variability. Okay, so again, another idea. So then, building off of this, what I am going to say is that I'm kind of looking through my stuff going, ooh, I don't remember how to calculate IQR. So IQR comes from quartile 3 minus quartile 1. And I know some other things I looked through in my notes. I know that if you have an outlier, it affects the mean more than the median. I better put that in here somewhere. If you have outliers, they affect the mean more than the median. And I'm going to put an extra note because I remember Mrs. Doe said something about this, is that the outlier pulls the mean towards that outlier. So this is just, again, just a quick start of what a reference sheet might look like. I'm going to be honest, some of the things that I don't like on my reference chart right now is I think there's too many words here, but it does help me. Whereas here, a little bit more cut and dry, kind of gives me an idea of what the bell means, what the shape. I remember some other shapes that we talked about. Let me put like an extra little note here, other shapes. Talked about uniform. And we talked about bimodal. Talked about bell. Okay, so maybe if you don't understand what these are, remember what these are, you'd want like a quick little sketch of those as well. Oh, some other things we did was a box plot. I better squeeze that in here somewhere. So, I don't know if I really remember how to do a box plot, so I'm going to put like a little extra little space here. So if I'm creating a box plot, I need 5-number summary. The 5-number summary was the minimum, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and then the max. So maybe if you do not understand what quartile 1 is, median, or quartile 3, maybe you're going to have to branch off and do some other little descriptors of that. So looking at this as a whole, and I can't zoom out anymore or else I would, I still have some space down here at the bottom. And I did this really quick. So if I were to actually take my time and maybe organize this more, I could probably wordsmith some of these things a little bit better so I could save even more space. What I see people trying to do is they try to make everything as small as they possibly can so they can fit as much stuff in here. Well, that's not going to do you any good if you can't read it. And I see people that if I were to look at their paper as a whole, there's a lot of information on there, but it looks like you have just written an essay, and it's all in one thing. So try to figure out how you can like chunk your reference chart into pieces so that it ends up being useful for you. Notice I did chuck in some extra colors. I have some purple over here with one idea. I have some blue here for another idea. Kind of combine some things. So just make some things stand out. If this were like all in lead or pencil or all in blue pen, nothing's really going to stand out. So again, you want this reference chart to be useful for you. What information do you not remember or not understand entirely that would be helpful if you had that at in your disposal and at your fingertips while you were taking the test? So hopefully this little information video helps.